I want you to think back to a time where you fell in love with the ocean. Think about that time. Where were you? What were you doing? And what made you fall in love with the ocean? Was it being in the ocean? Was it scuba diving? Maybe free diving? Maybe it was fishing. Maybe it was just being on a whale watching tour. Maybe being at an aquarium. Or you can think back to a time where many of us fell in love with the ocean by watching one of those fantastic visual representations of an ocean through documentaries. That's where I fell in love with the ocean because I lived in Ontario. I didn't grow up around an ocean, and it just had this powerful effect over me. It was watching a Jacques Cousteau film, watching the visual representation of the ocean and the storytelling that went with that basically made me fall in love with the ocean. We see it every day. We see it on Shark Week. We see it on BBC, Our Planet, Our Blue Planet, all these different documentaries, whether you're on land, whether it's underwater. It helps people fall in love. It helps people make that personal connection to the ocean. And I feel that we have this opportunity with the technology that we have today in social media and the power of storytelling for anybody to be able to put up these films. Maybe not in 4K, maybe not at that level where we're looking at like a BBC production or, a Discovery production or a Nat Geo production. But we have the power, you have the power to be able to do some of this storytelling in the way that you want to do it. That's the power of the technology today. And today I'm going to be making a case for why it's so important that you and I start putting together these mini documentaries on the internet. That's what we're going to talk about today on today's episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Liu, and this is a podcast where you find out what's happening with the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and what you can do to live for a better ocean by taking action. And today we're really going to focus in on speaking up for the ocean and why that is so important and how the mechanism of how we speak up for the ocean. I've been talking a lot about podcasting because that is my forte. Podcasting for the ocean, that is what I love to do, and that is what I know the best. However, I've been really getting into and really thinking about how I can take the YouTube channel that I have, not only do a video podcast, but also be able to tell some really compelling ocean stories through publishing on YouTube. And I always think when I put together something like this, I'm not very good at editing at this point. Especially from a visual standpoint, especially from telling a story. I can edit interviews very well. However, editing other things can be very difficult for me just because I just don't have the experience, and I'm trying to get that experience, and I'm moving in that direction because it's something that I find is a passion for me to do. And there are a lot of other people who are much more talented than I am that can do these types of, whether it be vlogs or whether it be, some sort of produced material that has a visual component where YouTube or Vimeo would be really compelling. And I've flip-flopped back and forth because, for me, it's all about time. Do I have time to do this kind of stuff? But for other people who it comes naturally to them, and especially the generation that has grown up with social media, and is a part of their life, and it's where they get their information, is really where, it comes to see. It really comes to more natural, and there's this need to be able to share this information. I see it on different forms. I see it on Instagram. I see it on TikTok and in short form, on YouTube Shorts in short form. Then I see it a little bit here and there to YouTube, but I don't always see those types of videos. And I get it. It takes time. It costs money to do this. Time and money is the big commodity right now in our world when you do this type of stuff. And it's not a high-paying job. But I do feel that it's a really important thing to have more people get into. And here's why. Last week, I went away. I went to Fort Lauderdale to attend an event. It was the Save Our Seas 20th anniversary celebration event in Fort Lauderdale. Great ceremony. It was really well done. It went by really smoothly. I got to network a lot with a lot of the people, not only on the Save Our Seas team, which I've met online but never met in person, oftentimes just meeting them for the first time. But I also got to meet a lot of the people who have benefited from grants from Save Our Seas, the project leaders from Save Our Seas. If you don't know, Save Our Seas Foundation is a foundation where they put out grants and support projects, especially innovative projects that are on the cusp of innovation that allow people to really start these types of projects, wonderful projects, which we'll probably go into soon. I'll have some of the people who have benefited from Save Our Seas, the start of their projects, on in the future. But it is just a great organization that takes a chance on researchers, especially individuals, not necessarily from a specific academic institution or nonprofit organizations, but even individuals who are coming out with innovative research that's important to sharks and marine science, and being able to put that forward. Great organization. Love the event. The event basically consisted of 2.5, 3 hours of there was some films that were being produced or being shown, which I'll talk about in a second, which is the topic of this podcast, of this episode. And then, there were some talks of the people who have benefited from Save Our Seas and still work with Save Our Seas Foundation to this day, or are supported with Save Our Seas Foundation money to this day. Very compelling stories of how they got involved in whether it be shark research, which is really what Save Our Seas is known for, or marine science research, which Save Our Seas also funds. Great event. I had a lot of fun. I got to meet my co-host for the Beyond Jaws podcast in person, Dr. David Ebert, which was amazing. We hung out for the 3 days that we were there. And then I got to meet a lot of other just wonderful people, like I said, who I'll introduce you to on this podcast soon. But here's the thing that really got me of this episode, or of this event. I was able to attend a premiere of a short film called Older Than Trees. And Older Than Trees is a film by Oscar-winning director Pippa Elrich. I got to meet Pippa. She, if you maybe recognize the name, like I mentioned, she's an Oscar-winning director. She won the Oscar for a little film, a documentary film that people may or may not have heard of, but My Octopus Teacher. Wonderful film, definitely tugs at your heartstrings, and it was just beautiful visually as well as from a storytelling point of view. Watching this film, this was a short film, so it wasn't very long. I think it was like 10-15 minutes long. It was just amazing. Now the film is really about hope for the future of sharks and rays. And it speaks to, I'm just reading the description on the Save Our Seas Foundation because it was funded by Save Our Seas. It speaks to the captivating and enigmatic nature of sharks, but also to the fragility of their crucial place in our oceans, despite millennia of stability. The loss of a deep personal connection to individual sharks spurs the desire to make a difference, taking a path of science towards conservation. Now this, it takes a unique approach to storytelling around sharks, hoping to inspire a fascination and love of these animals beyond fear, instilling a sense of hope in the future. It's a fantastic film. It is something that really got to me. Visually, it's amazing, but the storytelling behind it is by the CEO of Save Our Seas Foundation, James Lee, who I've had on the Beyond Jaws podcast a couple of times now. Really great guy. I'll put a link to his episode on Beyond Jaws so you can get to know him more. He has a fantastic voice for documentaries, a fantastic voice for podcasting as well. And he narrated a lot of this film and spoke about what was important to him and how he started his career with Save Our Seas and sort of with sharks. And the one point in the film where he talked about sharks was when he was diving with silky sharks. And he started to realize that there were not only were there just one or two sharks, there was a number of individuals. And he started to know their characteristics because he was diving with them so long, and he named them. And he could really see them from an individual standpoint and their characteristics. That really spoke to me because when we see sharks, we see this monster eating machine, this predator, this apex predator. And whether you respect it or you fear it, it commands a respect, but you don't see the personality behind each shark. Because we don't usually observe it for very long. A lot of the times, because when they are, when a story is being told around them, that particular shark or just the type of sharks, is you just see this shark moving through the water. Now, it could be beautiful for some and scary for others, but it's just that one shark, and it's supposed to typify a species. That characteristic of that shark, or the characteristics of that shark, the personality is basically representing the entire species of that shark. But when you hear it from James' voice when he's diving, you see these, and this is not the first person who's told me this, but from this perspective of the film, you really start to understand that sharks have more to them than just being an apex predator and, just being this monster-eating machine. You see that they have personality. You see that some are a little more skeptical than others. You see that some are more comfortable than others on the opposite side of the spectrum. And it's just really interesting to see that, because as James is recounting that story, and the audio is really great, but watching it happen, and sort of documenting each of the sharks as he's describing their characteristics of their personality, you really get that sense. And it's very powerful. It's extremely powerful to me and the audience. And it really made me think, as an audio podcaster, it really made me look inside and be like, is this really, like, this is really important. We really need to show more of these visuals. These short films are powerful. We don't have to do hour-long documentaries in 4K, like professional, taking $100,000 to $200,000 per episode to be able to produce, and only produce once in a while, a documentary, whether it be a Shark Week documentary, which is, once a year, whether it be a BBC Our Planet 2, 3, 4 series every so often. These are expensive to make, and people will tune in and enjoy and then forget about it. The one thing that I've learned through content creation is the consistency of publishing frequently really helps the audience tune in and get a better connection to the ocean by constantly seeing different stories, right? Or hearing different stories in my case. But imagine a YouTube channel that's set up where you're talking about different stories, but a little bit more in depth, and showing visuals, going through interviews, showing actual visuals, underwater, videography or even photography, and starting to talk more about the problems, the challenges, the successes that we've seen in ocean conservation. Just seeing that on a consistent basis through YouTube. So many people use YouTube. It's the largest search engine in the world right now, second largest, owned by Google, which is the largest. And then there's TikTok, right? And even then, sometimes TikTok kind of goes ahead. I don't know where it is in the standings right now, but this is sort of what I've been told. These are powerful platforms where you can show these types of stories on a consistent basis and tell these stories, whether in short form or long form, or even just intermediate, like 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of stories. I think it really says something to the creators who are putting these together, and to get that message out there, to get that support for ocean conservation, where people are seeing information that is being told all the time. And storytelling is a key to that, and having that visual aspect, where humans are very visual. We're a very visual species. We like that. We love hearing stories, but we also love seeing those stories kind of played out in front of us. And putting it on a platform like YouTube or Vimeo on the internet is also powerful, because many of the younger generations that I've seen just anecdotally with my kids and with their friends, they watch YouTube. That's the first place they go to. And if they have a question, say, how are sharks doing these days? Well, we could tell that. We could tell them that. And what I love about the internet is it democratizes, the communications. We can have people from all over the world contribute. You can have people see the episodes from all over the world, instead of just having it on one network where you need to have a subscription to that network. Not everybody can do that. I can't watch something that is produced or shown in Australia, over here in North America, unless I try and go through it in other ways, that are not probably considered illegal, which I don't want to do that. Right. And so having this power of the internet, that's why I think streaming is so important too, being able to stream and watch on YouTube and watch on other platforms, short form platforms like TikTok, Instagram, even Twitter now, I think is starting something. You're seeing a lot of opportunities to be able to show content that is geared towards ocean conservation, wildlife conservation, the planet conservation, but in a different form, where it's just consistent messaging over and over and over again to show and maybe introduce people who are doing great projects around the world, who are succeeding or finding hope and giving that hope to the people. Because I'll tell you, watching the news, watching regular cable television, it is not hopeful. The optimism is just not there, because we have some very major problems within the world, and news agencies love to hammer that down. But we miss the hope. We miss the optimism. We miss the project leaders that are being funded by foundations like Save Our Seas and other foundations who are discovering sharks and are enabling to put tags on little sea turtles, baby sea turtles, to find out where they go once they're released or once they get back into the ocean from their nest. These are the different projects that we get to see, and then we get more information on sea turtles and sharks and MPAs, marine protected areas, and then we're able to go back and we're able to say, hey, this is where the conservation need is. This is what we could be doing. We can inform policy using this type of research, right? Whether it be an audiovisual storytelling, a short film such as Older Than Trees, or whether it be a paper or a number of papers that have been published in research for, sea turtles or sharks or marine protected areas. Or it's a policy that was informed by all of that. And, the short film got the public's, support and putting pressure on government officials to say, hey, we need to put this policy forward, and a nonprofit organization working in collaboration with that storyteller, that director, to say, hey, yes, we have this policy. We think this policy should go forward, and to answer that and to help you with the public pressure on this type of issue. And we can help you put that through. Right? Here's some information. Here's a policy brief. Here's this. That collaboration is all just started through a film. And we can use Blackfish as such a great and powerful film as an example. Watching Blackfish really turned people to the idea that captivity for marine mammals, especially orcas, is bad. And that we need to change policies, and we need to change the way we look at orcas in captivity. Now, although it hasn't necessarily happened a lot, we've seen the release of an orca in Keiko. We've almost seen a release in a tragic story of Toki. And hopefully we'll see more. But we saw policies, national policies, against not capturing and holding new orcas in captivity, and marine mammals in captivity in Canada and the U.S. No more breeding program for orcas in Canada and the U.S. We've seen major policies. That changes the game. That will eventually save future orcas that could have been born into captivity and never, released, never seen the freedom of the open ocean. And we will never see a capture in North America again, or a capture and then put into a tank again. It was a lot of it, not only, it wasn't just that Blackfish movie. There was a lot of work that spearheaded that, not only that film, but before that. And it just ended up being the catalyst to really get people to think about what we need to do and where we need to act. It was beautiful. And although it took time, it's still taking time, we're getting there. So the power of these films, the power of these videos, whether they go viral or not, to inform people that could be in the future politicians, lawyers, litigators, I guess that's lawyers, right? Policymakers, business people. It could really spearhead a new generation of people who are thinking about the environment first, because they fell in love with your audiovisual storytelling. That's the power. That's the wonder. And Pippa Elric is just a pioneer within this, right? And this new generation of doing these types of films. Now, her films, are high quality, you're looking at Netflix type movies and documentaries. This short film is nothing short of the same. The storytelling is powerful, and we may not be at that level right now. But I try and thrive for that. That's my next step, is to start going into audiovisual, continuing with the audio, of course, with this podcast. But that's something that I'm looking forward to in the future. And I really got inspired by the Save Our Seas 20th anniversary celebration. I wasn't sure what I was going to get out of it when I went to this event, and I know now that's the one thing I got out of it, the major thing. There were a lot of other things, just being able to meet people in person and be able to just sort of solidify sort of my network and my connections to people within the sort of the Save Our Seas umbrella. And it was really great for me from a professional as well as a personal standpoint to be able to meet a lot of these people in person. And as a sort of an audio journalism person, marine science communicator, it was great to see and hopefully get some more interviews out of that from the people I met there. So that's what I want to tell you today, is audiovisual storytelling from a point of internet publishing, like YouTube, on YouTube, and even on short form content, if you can make it, Instagram, YouTube Shorts, TikTok, is extremely powerful, and it could inspire that next person to be a leader in the ocean conservation world and maybe change things up just a little bit more. Hopefully multiple leaders. But I'd love to hear your comments on this. If you have questions, please let me know. You can hit me up on Instagram at How to Protect the Ocean. That's at How to Protect the Ocean. You can also email me on my website. If you go to speakupforblue.com, there is a microphone just in the bottom right. You can actually leave a voicemail, and I can hear what you have to say. You can also go to contact us page and send me an email. There's so many ways to get a hold of me. Use one of them. I would love to hear from you. And of course, if you want to share this with somebody that you think is on the cusp of going into audiovisual storytelling, being a filmmaker for marine science and conservation, maybe this would be good to share. Maybe this will be that catalyst to make them push forward like it was for me. And it's free to share. So I want to thank you so much for listening to this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Lewin. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time. And happy storytelling for the ocean. And of course, happy conservation.